Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Russ Thornton on the line. He's a financial advisor over at Wealthcare for Women, and he's also host of Women's Retirement Radio. Russ, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Excited to be here.
Oh, man, so I'm excited to get into your podcast today. For those of you who've been listening to my show for a long time, I love bringing podcasters on here and talking about their shows and helping them promote and spread their message. But before we do that, Russ, I want to get further into Wealthcare for Women. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
Yeah, thanks. I've been a financial advisor working with individuals and families for over 25 years now. And several years ago, I found myself working with more and more women, either working with a couple and the husband passed away and I continued to work with the wife, or I was getting introductions and referrals to women that had gone through divorce or had lost their partner or their husband, or a whole variety of situations. And I kind of recognized that as a natural market. And then coupled with my mom's personal experience, she and my dad went through what turned out to be a pretty nasty divorce. This is 25 plus years ago when I was coming out of college. I've seen the impact that has had and continues to have even on her life today. And now she's in her mid 70s. And so it's just important for me to make sure that women get the attention and the advice, and most importantly, someone that can listen to them and help them navigate life and make smart decisions with their money.
No, I love it. And so what do you think are some of the, because obviously you've been doing this a long time and you have a very defined niche, meaning you have a very good subset of clients that you like working with. What are some of the common challenges for maybe, and obviously this is going to change obviously from client to client and family situation, but I know certain themes tend to arise when you work with a certain population of clients, whatever niche that is, over an extended period of time. What are some of the themes or challenges that, a lot of the women maybe are having or your clients are having prior to working with you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we could probably spend an entire hour talking about all of the challenges and obstacles that that many women face in seeking financial advice or financial guidance. I'll highlight a couple. Women, first of all, women live long. Their life expectancies are greater than men, so they have to plan typically for a longer time horizon. Yet, a big one. I think it's pretty widely known that there's a wage gap. So women are often paid less for similar work that a man is paid. So they kind of have that double-edged sword of having to plan for a longer time period and often with fewer resources. Add into the fact that many women leave the workforce for a period of time or for many years to have children and raise a family. And then finally, the last thing I'll mention is the financial advice system. Wall Street, as I think people would traditionally think of it, is it was created by men for men. And so there is a lot of trouble that I've experienced and heard stories about with women, even married couples. Like I can think of one client in particular. They went as a married couple. They went to their former advisor, and the wife later told me that their advisor would not even make eye contact with her, would not really acknowledge her while she was sitting in the same room. He would only talk to her husband, and it turns out in this particular situation, she was actually the primary breadwinner. They both worked, but she actually made a larger income than her husband did. So it's just stories like that I think women need to be prepared for and think carefully about when they're seeking advice or help or guidance with their finances, their financial planning, and their retirement planning.
Yeah, I think those are some really great points. And what I like about this and what it shows about your expertise in working with your clientele is that you really understand some of the challenges. So some of the people listening probably thought that you were going to give some very soft answers there, but there's some actual definable things that put women behind the eight ball, so to speak, on some of these problems. And one thing is the wage gap. That's a tangible. That's statistics. Like, that's a thing that they face, number one. And then number two, like planning for longer life expectancy. These are real financial planning topics. This isn't just like, oh, let's be inclusive, or let's, which by the way, I'm not against that, but what I want people to understand is there's some real, actual tangibles there that are they're numbers, they're data driven, and there's real planning that has to be done differently, in my opinion, for women than maybe some other scenarios. So I love the work you're doing there, Russ. And you're right, we can talk about it for an hour or hours. But that being said, I want to spend some time on your podcast, and I want to give that as a resource also to my listeners. It's something somewhere that they can go to listen. So that being said, tell us more about Women's Retirement Radio.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in education, and as much as I would like to work with everyone, I realize that just because the limits and demands on my time, I can only work with kind of a small select group of clients. And so I'm always thinking about ways I can educate more people, and in this instance, more specifically women. So I've always done a lot of content marketing. I write on my blog regularly. I send out a weekly email newsletter to my email list. But about a couple months ago, I decided to jump into the podcast game. So I started Women's Retirement Radio. You can find it, anywhere you can find podcasts. I'm only, I've got 10 episodes recorded. I've actually published 9 of them. So there's a new episode dropping Monday, this next week. And I talk about, all things retirement related. There's some general retirement principles and things I talk about, but I also try to always bring it back to how does this relate to women? What can women take away from it? So we talk about things like Medicare and Social Security, investing, financial planning, insurance, and pretty much anything under the sun that has to do with money, retirement planning, and women's lives and lifestyles. It's mostly been just kind of a monologue type podcast. I did one a couple of weeks ago where I interviewed a woman who is the founder of a firm called Boomer Benefits. They specialize in Medicare advice. So I look forward to doing more interviews in the future. But so far it's been fun, and I look forward to continuing to pump out episodes.
No, I love it, and I'm a huge podcast fan and advocate for, and I love people starting new podcasts and sharing their expertise because in my mind, I mean, you're going to help so many people that go there and listen to it and benefit from your years and years of work that you're choosing to share. So I love it. I'm a big fan of that. So that being said, Russ, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information, either, of course, on the podcast or also on Wealthcare for Women and learning more about what you do there, I mean, what's the best way for them to reach out?
The best place to go is just go to Google and type in my name. I'm pretty easy to find, but if you want a more direct route, go to wealthcareforwomen.com. That's my website, and there you can find my email address, my phone number, everything's there. You can also listen to podcast episodes, find my social channels. So the best place to start is probably wealthcareforwomen.com.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Russ, it's been great having you on the show today. Appreciate you coming on and sharing more about what you do and also about the podcast. And to all the listeners, go check that out. So not only Wealthcare for Women, but also Women's Retirement Radio. So a lot of great content there. And I have no doubt that Russ is going to keep that going and keep adding to the catalog. And also, if you're listening to this for the first time and you enjoyed it, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a review on the Apple iTunes store. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, give it a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. I mean, love to keep the conversation going in the YouTube community. Let's move the conversation over there. And Russ, thanks again for coming on the show.